All right. Hi, everyone. Today is Wednesday, January 27th. This is the Cluster API office hours. Cluster API is a subproject of SIG Cluster Lifecycle. Please make sure to follow the CNCF Code of Conduct and the meeting etiquette during this meeting. If you'd like to speak, use the raise hand feature on Zoom and I'll call on you. And if you have any topics that you want to discuss, feel free to add them to the discussion topics section of the agenda right here. All right, so we'll get started with some PSAs. Fabrizio, take it away.
Here I am. Hi, everyone. So I have two PSA from the SIG Cluster Lifecycle meeting. So one PSA from the SIG Cluster Lifecycle meeting, basically folks from KS Infra working group requested that everyone should migrate end-to-end job which are relying on Google GCS bucket or GCR bucket and switch to the community owned one. Here there is the linked PR and also basically the mapping between old and new buckets. Yesterday, apparently one of the two buckets was not fully populated with some CI artifacts, but I saw a PR merging today, so we should be fine now.
Sounds good. Thanks for the heads up. Any questions for Fabrizio? All right, I don't see any hands raised. Go ahead for the second one.
Yes, so today a contributor filed a PR fixing an issue on MD book for a CVE. So the PR is on hold because there is a small rendering issue, but the CVE is pretty important. It is an injection problem. So please, everyone using MD book, have a look and try to get it fixed soon.
Joel?
Yeah, I was just going to say I was looking at that earlier, and I think the rendering issue that you've highlighted is actually already merged into master. I don't think that's caused by the CVE. I had a look at the master Netlify, and it's already there. Someone has added, or at some point we've added enough providers to the tabs so that it's overflowed on the line. So I'm not sure what we can do there.
Got it. So it sounds like it might make sense to merge this PR to fix the CVE and then fix the rendering issue separately. Cool. Any other questions? Fabrizio?
Thank you for investigating the problem, Joel. So if this is the case, we have to fix. So I agree. We can merge the PR as it is, and to fix the rendering problem, we have to change a CSS file. And if we look at some of the PR, I will search for the change that we have to do.
Awesome. Let's move on to the next PSA, Nadir. We can't hear you.
Sorry, yes, I just saw this on Twitter like half an hour ago. So there's a talk from Equinix on Tinkerbell and Cluster API at 12 p.m. PST today with CNCF.
Cool, thanks for pointing that out. Any questions on any of the PSAs? All right, if not, let's move on. Discussion topics. We have Laura from SIG Multi-Cluster.
Hello. I did make some slides to try and facilitate a little bit. Let me see if I can. I don't think I can share my screen.
Yes, let me enable that. Hold on.
Okay, thank you. And there's a link in the docs too, if anybody wants to follow along themselves.
Go ahead, you should be able to share now.
Okay, I'm going to stop your screen sharing. Okay. Can everybody see? Okay, great. All right, so my name is Laura and I'm visiting from SIG Multi-Cluster. And I'll kind of get right into it here to sort of explain why I'm here and also what SIG Multi-Cluster is. So SIG Multi-Cluster is focused on trying to figure out how to solve issues related to connecting and networking multiple Kubernetes clusters together. We have a MCS API that is in KEP form that has been implemented a couple different places. And part of our work is also anything that's sort of blocking that KEP, one of which is the concept of a cluster ID, where a cluster knows itself what its name is. For our purposes, we also kind of need it to know what membership, like what membership of multi-clusters, of a multi-cluster group that it's actually in. So that's kind of the story from us. We've been working on this for directly as a KEP for the past like 2 months or so. Right now we have it as status provisional inside our SIG multi-cluster KEP list. And we're mostly focused on defining the properties of a cluster local CRD as the implementation we want that stores the cluster name and also, again, information about, you know, what am I a member of, me, this cluster, what other clusters am I friends with? And as we're trying to move this into implementable and also just keep moving it down the KEP pipeline, we're considering when should we go alpha, should we try and do that in 1.21? And also this started the conversation of should we be targeting this in a SIGs repo or in tree? And for the latter point, we think that's only necessarily relevant if, you know, this is useful to other SIGs and other people. And I'll get into it a little bit of why I think this may be relevant to Cluster API specifically, but that's kind of why we're going around and seeing what other groups are about. Just to highlight this a little bit more of what the KEP itself is about from the perspective of our SIG, we basically want to define a standard for how clusters should refer to each other when they're in the same multi-cluster environment. And we want it to be useful and strict enough to unblock some known use cases. This has previously been kind of like trapped in a abstraction before, but we have some specific use cases in multi-cluster that we know we can try and address. And specifically, we know that we want people to be able to identify which cluster is which in a multi-cluster setup in their logs for debugging purposes. So a name would be helpful there. Disambiguate pods and multi-cluster headless service to make DNS names. To track when new clusters have joined the environment. So that's what the cute 2 clusters down here are talking about. A couple of people from Cluster API have actually said, hey, and I think y'all are in this meeting, so hi to everybody who's commented on the PR or got connected somehow on GitHub. So Vince commented a little bit, Cecile had a issue that got linked at one point. So it seems that there's this independent interest in Cluster API to have something similar. I think if I understood the issue properly, there was some talk about having it as an annotation. We're interested in having sort of like this separate CRD as an implementation. So I think we'd like to figure out how we can collaborate or if they're separate issues or what. So fundamentally, I think what we want to know from you all and in general from other SIGs and sub-projects is, do you have a need for your clusters to know their own name via cluster local CRD that has some of these KEP standard specific characteristics related to their uniqueness, mutability, and lifetime? What are the use cases that you have? Do they differ from the ones that we've already included in the KEP in the first place? And I put a little link, which is basically the same as what I showed on the prior slide with the 2 clusters talking to each other. And if you're interested in collaborating or getting updates like this style, what is the best way for me to work with you? And as a sort of little aside, possibly the hardest thing of any open source project is naming things, and we're still naming our CRD. So if you are a person who likes to brainstorm names, I also have a Google Sheet that's collecting them. And if you like to make your voice known in the democracy, I can also send you the survey when it comes down to it. But that's for later. So that's my my spiel.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Laura. This was really, really helpful and concise. Thank you for making the slides.
Great.
Do we have any questions or comments or answers for Laura? Vince, go ahead.
Hi, and welcome, Laura, to this meeting. Thank you so much for presenting this. I know that we've been kind of like silent on that PR for a while. So I really appreciate you come join this meeting. So I think this has been asked like quite like a bit to like understand the name of a cluster from the cluster itself. There have been like a different things that have been asked, but like our current, I think, like idea was to just annotate the node RISCO like with an annotation specific to cluster API. But I mean, I think like, I don't want to speak for everybody here, but like we're probably willing to kind of adopt like something that's like in Kubernetes itself. Actually, like we actually welcome that like a lot, so that like we don't go our own way. So like huge +1 from my side on that, and definitely like interested in collaborating on this a little bit more. We can bring use cases to you folks and bring something back, and we could also like tie some things up together a little more. As far as naming, like I would love to see the spreadsheet. Personally, I like to back chat on that a bit, and hopefully we can help each other.
Anyone else? One thing that'd be great is if you can share those slides so we have the links and everything in the meeting notes.
Awesome. Yeah, they're in the meeting notes next to my name.
Perfect.
Too, so you can grab it. And yeah, I think if it's best to collaborate on this online, should I just find you all on Slack?
Yeah, we're all in Slack, hashtag cluster API. I assume there's a multi-cluster channel as well.
There is. Feel free to hang out with us too. Yeah.
Cool. I should probably join that. Yeah. So from my side, the annotation use case was more like, well, there's two sides of it. Like if it was first of all, like just a nice convenience, like if you're a user who's creating a bunch of cluster API clusters and you just want to be able to quickly tell like, oh, which one am I on right now? Just to be able to like see that information. And then also like if you're a platform or something building on top of cluster API and you have different cluster API clusters from different providers, right now there's nothing that identifies the Kubernetes workload cluster as being a cluster API cluster. Like it knows nothing about its management cluster because it's all the other way around. So the management cluster has all the information about the workload cluster, but the workload cluster knows nothing about who is managing it or how. So that was kind of a quick hack to like get that information. But if we have a more streamlined way of doing that, definitely open to it.
Yeah, sounds like there's a relationship between the workload and the management cluster in the same way we envision just like general multi-cluster. So I think there is actually even overlap on that point, which I hadn't considered in the first place. So
one thing to note is like if this comes in 121 as an alpha, we can probably like line up a first experimental implementation for our V1 Alpha 4. So I think it should line up. I mean, we're kind of a few months away probably from like a .0 release, but yeah, we can definitely try something out. Like it's mostly a matter of like opening an issue and like see if someone wants to work on it and yeah, create these resources.
In terms of the KEP, what's the timeline on it? Because I know it's been open for a while. Like, are you nearing consensus or?
Yeah, I think internally at SIG Multi-Cluster, we have a lot of consensus, and we're trying to fill in all the details for implementable, which is also why we thought we had a chance to hit alpha for 1.2.1, because we've already kind of talked it out a lot in our meetings and just need to like get it down on the paper. But definitely wanted to see if there was, you know, broader utility, and then also any like specific pushback from other group affiliated groups before we, you know, really make that timeline commitment, I guess. But that's my perspective, and we're super actively working on it. And if things sound good from this group, and we can keep talking about it offline too, but I think we would push like full steam ahead on that.
Okay. Yeah, so I think if anyone's interested, go check out the KEP, and definitely review it, because there is definitely some overlap, or not overlap, but similar interests here. Okay, I don't see any hands raised. Anyone else have questions or comments? All right, if not, let's move on. If you think of anything later, feel free to ask in chat or in Slack. I'm sure Laura will be happy to answer. Okay, I'm going to take over screen share again. Thank you, Laura. Let's keep going to Jen. Debug help needed.
Yes. Hi, everyone. I just wanted to ask help here. I've been opening PR like a week ago for rollout strategy for KCP, and I'm hitting the issue now. It's conversion related, I think. I hit this bootstrap token form error in CI, and I've been trying to debug this like days now, and I don't have any clue how to fix the conversion. So if anyone have any ideas, we don't necessarily need to go through it right now, but Slack me or comment into the PR. Any help would be great.
Sounds good. Yeah, let's take this offline.
Yeah.
I'm sure a few of us can take a look and pitch in.
Yeah, thanks.
Thanks for bringing it up. Fabrizio.
Yes, yesterday in SIG Cluster Lifecycle, we discussed again which talk we want to bring to the next KubeCon EU, which is virtual again. And basically the current stance of SIG Cluster Lifecycle is that we are bringing one talk as a SIG, so the usual SIG introduction talk. And we are seeking for volunteer for this talk. Second, we leave each project the possibility to send their own submission. So technically, we can send a submission for copy and also a submission for each copy provider implementation. So I would like to hear if someone is interested. Please get in contact with Lubomir, Justin, or team. To basically, they don't want to block or nothing. They want only just to keep a picture of how many suggestions are we sending. And last thing is that the deadline is the 9th of February.
So sorry, just to clarify, you're saying we're considering sending one submission for all the sub-projects, including CAPI and KubeADM and all of them.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. So basically we are not aware of limitation from the CNCF. So the idea is that, okay, don't scope down, don't give a limit to the sub-project. If everyone want to submit, they are free to submit. And then we will basically listen to what the CNCF folks will answer.
Okay, We have a note in chat that the deadline is the 7th, not the 9th.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Vince, you have your hand raised.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, like, this is a great opportunity usually for new folks to the project to contribute. And if you're interested in like doing, like, for example, like a cluster API deep dive or things like that, please do have a submission in place, and we can definitely help you in terms of like giving you an idea of what we submitted like in the previous years. But I would really suggest for new folks to take this opportunity, because that's a great way to step up in the community. Yeah.
Also, one thing I would add is like, this doesn't necessarily have to be like a overall all of cluster API deep dive, because I think that's what we've mostly done in the past. And it made sense because like people still didn't really know what cluster API was, but I think we're getting to a point where we're getting mature enough where it would be interesting to see some deep dives on like more specific topics or more specific features, and go maybe a bit deeper than just like, here's what we're doing in V1 Alpha 4, here's what we're doing next, and that sort of stuff. So yeah, if you're considering it, but you're not sure, you're kind of hesitant, reach out to Fabrizio or Vince or I or anyone, and we can help you decide. Mike?
Thanks, Cecile. I just wanted to say, I think your idea about like branching out, going a little wider on the topics is an excellent thought. My question would be like, is that going to be acceptable to the, the people who kind of organize, I guess the CNCF kind of organizing KubeCon or whatever? Because I know sometimes they get a little, I don't know, I don't want to say discriminatory, but like they, what talks that seem to get deeper and deeper into a topic sometimes aren't as useful as like beginner talks, or don't seem, I don't know. I'm just kind of curious.
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm not sure, honestly, but I think definitely you want to like give a bit of an introduction to be like friendly to everyone in the room for people who haven't really heard the basics. But I think it's okay to like go a bit deeper like later on in the talk on like some of the topics, especially if you've had like previous talks that already went over all the basics. But that's just, yeah, my opinion. Fabrizio? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah. I was just going to follow up. Like, I guess the question would be like, in terms of KubeCon, like, would we ever have the opportunity to get like 2 talks in where we could do like a 101 and then a 201 or something like that, Anyways, that was it. Go ahead, Fabrizio.
So my understanding is that those talks are talks so they are talks of the maintainer tracks. So the goal of the maintainer tracks usually is to basically tell people there is this project and look and tell to the people what this project is doing, and then look for new contributors. But I totally agree with Cecile that given that it is the third or the fourth time we are doing this in KubeCon or even more, it is not required to do a full introduction, a high-level introduction of the project. You can simply show one cool feature that we are working on. So you can basically make this as a deep dive.
All right. Any other questions? Cool. But yeah, if you're curious, reach out. I don't see any other topics for today. Are there any last minute additions or demos or anything interesting, questions that people want to throw out there? All right. If not, thanks all. We're going to cut it short and have a great rest of your day. See you all next time. Bye.